Casual sex. It is definitely the norm today. It is actively encouraged by many of our intellectual leaders who encourage young women to go into adult films and do OnlyFans and to sleep around, saying that it's empowering to have casual sex. Yet at the same time, we also see loads of people having sexual regretting having loads of these casual sexual encounters. This is Alexander Grace, and he talked about a study that was done looking at the correlation between women having casual sex and those women regretting that casual sex to see if there was any kind of change in behavior. And to summarize, the study found that the women did not change their behavior despite feelings of regret. Now, there are a few hypotheses that I want to go through just to highlight certain points that I want to talk about.
Hypothesis 2. More action regret at T1 should predict entering a long-term relationship at T2, especially for women. Again, it's a pretty straightforward prediction. If a woman feels a lot of regret at being promiscuous and having casual sex at T1, then there's an increased likelihood that she's going to change her ways and have long-term relationships and to seek out a committed partnership in T2. Is that what happened? Well, let's look at the results. Contrary to the functional hypothesis, level of casual sex regret at T1 reduced the odds of entering a committed relationship at T2. Do you understand what that's saying? Her feelings of regret correlates with a reduction in the likelihood that she's going to make different choices in the future. The fact that she feels regret means that it is more likely that she's going to continue to do the same thing in the future, not less likely.
The correlation was that the more action regret that these women felt, the more they weren't entering into long-term relationships. In other words, the more casual sex they had, the less likely they were to actually get into a meaningful relationship. And that's really what all this comes down to, is the meaning of the action. Sex is a deeply meaningful action. And when you treat it as if it's not, you destroy the ability to feel that meaning within you. A lot of people, and I've heard this many times, is they talk about it like it's some sort of on-off switch. Like you can treat something that's meaningful irreverently and like it's nothing. And then, when you feel like it, you can just turn that meaning back on and suddenly it has meaning to you again. That's not how it works. The more you treat something as meaningful, as if it isn't, the more you erode that meaning within you. The action and the meaning are directly correlated for you. And I think casual sex is especially harmful for women. I think it's harmful for guys too, but I think there's a level that it's particularly harmful for women because there's a way in which in that space a woman is surrendering to the man. She's, opening herself up, physically and emotionally. She's becoming deeply vulnerable. But in a casual sexual encounter, she's not becoming deeply and fully vulnerable to this guy. She just met him. She's not fully opening up. And I think the more that she does that, the more that those two things become separated. Now let me show you something. Think of it like this. Your actions and the meaning associated with them go together. The more you engage in that action as if it's not meaningful, the more you close off the possibility for that meaning for yourself. They go together. So if you treat sex like a handshake, you bring the meaning of sex down to that level. It's not that you can have the meaning, the deep connection, and the vulnerability open to you when you treat sex as if it's not meaningful. You can't then just turn that on in yourself. You've degraded that action in yourself so that the meaning is no longer there. You can't access it because, this is sort of an aside, but prostitutes talk about this, about how in order to engage in these actions, they have to disassociate. They have to numb themselves. They have to basically turn off their awareness of what they're actually doing. And you can't just turn that back on. You can't just, oh, okay, now I'm going to go home and have a deep, loving connection with my husband or something. It doesn't work like that. You can't treat something as if it's nothing and then the next moment treat it as if it's deeply important. And that's what's interesting about this study. It's not that it shows women as being, horrible or something. It shows the ideas that our culture is pushing as horrible. Like, women aren't built this way. They're doing what they've been raised to do. They're being told from many, many sources that casual sex is empowering. Going off and doing adult videos, hey, you'll feel so empowered and good about yourself. And it's the total opposite. And you hear that from a lot of women who go off and do adult films. You hear this from a lot of women who do sleep around a lot. And perhaps something that you have noticed is that women who have a higher body count are a lot more emotionally numb in a relationship, are less vulnerable. Not because they're necessarily guarded, but because of that, the level of meaning and openness and vulnerability isn't there anymore to them. They've lowered that they've cut themselves off from that level of meaning. And it happens without even really knowing it. Yeah, and there's another point is that men are often shamed by being turned off by women with a high body count. And I think that this is really a terrible thing to shame men for, because you have a visceral reaction to hearing a woman who has slept around a lot, not because, women shouldn't be enjoying themselves. That's because that's what the feminists will say. Men want to control women. That's not it. The visceral response to that is because, gross, she's treated something deeply important, deeply special, as if it's totally unspecial, as if it's just a handshake. And what's gross about that is it says a lot about how she sees herself. And that's something that most people don't bring up about this, is these women going out and having loads of casual sex and not changing their behavior, even though they feel terrible, right? Going out and feeling regret over and over and over again and continuing that same behavior. That is an action of someone with low self-esteem. Treating yourself like that. That's not an action of someone who's empowered or feels good about themselves. That's someone who treats themselves like garbage. That is not someone who has a lot of self-respect. That's really what our culture does to women, is it turns them into these people who do not like themselves. And it creates this horrible cycle of, if you want to feel good about yourself, go out and, sleep around and do adult videos and OnlyFans, which only makes that worse. It gets them into this cycle of making destroying their self-esteem. It's tragic. Now, there's one other hypothesis I want to show you.
Hypothesis 4a. In general, manifest functional regret must predict reduced future regret. And finally, this is the prediction that they actually got correct. Women's scores were significantly reduced between T1 and T2, while men's scores increased marginally. Women reported lower levels of action regret at T2 relative to T1, while men reported more. In layman's terms, women felt less and less regret as time went on. They're still engaging in the exact same behavior, they just feel less bad about it.
No, I think that makes sense though. I mean, over time, doing this over and over again, as the meaning is lost, the emotional response of, I'm doing something that's hurting myself, is lost as well. Because they've just become numb to it all. Now, I think why the study found that men did have a higher level of regret, whereas women didn't, is I really do think it comes down to the ideas in our culture. Men are not pushed to sleep around. Men are not pushed to go and do OnlyFans and do all this other stuff. That is solely pushed on women. And I think that plays a huge role in all of this. for a woman, like, if this is what she's been raised to believe, if she's been raised to believe that, treating sex like it's important, that it's special, that's what the patriarchy wants you to think. And the best way to feel better about yourself and to feel empowered is to go out and just let some random barfly have sex with you. If that's all she knows, if that's what she thinks is going to make herself feel better, it's hard to blame them in a way, because that's, for some women, that's all they've ever been taught. So to sum up, I'm not saying that you should wait till marriage or something like that. I'm not saying that you should be some sort of prude or treat sex like it's this, shameful thing. What I am saying is that you should treat sex as deeply meaningful. It is a meaningful action, and treating it like it's not meaningful is only going to hurt you. That's that feeling of regret. Both men and women feel it. When you take these deeply meaningful actions as if they aren't meaningful, you're degrading yourself, because you're treating yourself, you're opening yourself up and performing this action which is supposed to be reserved for a deeply connective moment, and treating it as if it's nothing. And that's treating you like you're nothing. That's that feeling of regret, that pain. So I'm not saying this out of some sort of duty of you've got to treat it like it's important and special, save it for marriage, or anything nonsense like that. It's important for your psychological health and your happiness, for your self-esteem. Yeah, and sex is the deepest form of connection you can have with someone. It's the most intense expression of love you can ever perform. And when you treat that as casually as a handshake, you don't elevate that moment to something meaningful. You drag down the action and your own ability to feel the meaning of that action down to something casual. The effect of this is, in your own mind, this act can't communicate that level of connection anymore. You have devalued that action, and because of it, that level of connection and meaning is now impossible to reach. Now, I'm sure you've experienced it with women you've met that have had loads of casual sex, but there's a kind of calloused part to their vulnerability, to that deeper part of themselves, is that you can feel it. Like they don't ever quite open up exactly, especially not with men, not in that romantic way. And I think that's kind of what has to happen, especially with women, is that intensely vulnerable surrender that they should be experiencing in sex, they don't, because, well, they aren't doing that in a casual sexual encounter. How could they? I mean, they don't know the guy, they don't trust the guy, they aren't getting to a fully relaxed, opened, vulnerable moment, because that's not what the moment is about in a casual experience. One of the hypotheses in the video, Alexander Grace's video, is that the more a woman slept around, the less likely it is that she's going to end up in a long-term relationship. And I think that's why. She closes off that vulnerability that's necessary for a long-term healthy relationship without even knowing it. I mean, it's not like a conscious thing. She isn't able to open up like that. I think it's possible to, but she would have to knowingly try to open back up to revive that part of herself. Yeah, our culture is doing almost everything that it can to try and destroy meaning inside of us, our ability to see things as meaningful. We're told that sex and love are separate. Our intellectual leaders are telling us that all women should at least once go into adult films to reclaim your body. To reclaim your body, you should sell it. I mean, that's madness. And open relationships have become totally normal, which is, it's pretty obviously just a rationalization for sleeping around. It takes something special of finding a number one person in your life. That's the whole meaning of being in a romantic relationship with someone, and instead degrading it to just casual sex. So see sex as meaningful, and find a woman who also sees sex as meaningful. Well, I hope you got something out of this video. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you're not already, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much.